In the prologue, sorry? Oh, that was her. This time we watched Season 5, Episode 16, Alien from L.A.
AKA Ireland Underground.
But first, some follow-up. Last episode, you and Chris were talking about The Last Chase. And Adam, you proposed a film in which a car drove straight into the cockpit of a plane?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, alert listener Marty pointed us to an infamous scene in Live Free or Die Hard in which a car drives straight into the cockpit of a helicopter. Is that good enough?
Well, I mean, I appreciate Marty. Marty is a longtime listener and not a first-time caller. But, Marty, I love schlock. And you know this. You listen to this program enough to know that I love schlock. Now, when I want a cockpit and I want a plane coming back into the runway, you know that's exactly what I want. But I am tasking you with this. Find me that movie if it already exists, because I want to watch it. I will not accept a shark going into a plane. I will not accept a bike going into a plane. I want a car. But I think you can find it. And then let's not bring up helicopters, because let's face it, the only good helicopter action scene in the entire world is when Darkman was hanging off of one.
I'm trying to think if I can think of another really good helicopter.
If you say Mission Impossible, so help me. But wait, we don't have time to talk about bad CG anymore because, damn it, it's the most important day of the entire year. The day that we most look forward to. And in fact, this is the most important one. Not only is it Donald Pleasence Day, it is the Donald Pleasence Centenary.
Whoa!
And if you're wondering why we're doing Alien from LA, it's because we've run out of Donald Pleasence movies, and there's one joke about Donald Pleasence in this episode.
What's that?
What it looks like, a troll mule.
It's Donald Pleasence.
And we didn't find that by accident. I remembered this when we first started the show. And I suggested this as our plan. We do the first two Donald Pleasence movies for the first 2 years, and then we do Alien from LA in the third, because I held on to my Donald Pleasence knowledge. However, Chris has a bit of a Donald Pleasence update for us.
All right. What is it, Chris?
Yeah, I just got back from a trip to New York City where I was lucky enough to be able to see the Great Cheesy Movie Circus Tour, the MST3K live tour, Joel's final tour, he tells us, in which they're doing two movies. One of which, in fact, stars, well, you say that loosely, but stars Donald Pleasence. He's got first billing on the title card anyways, even though he's only in the movie for about 5 minutes. But no matter, he's there. It's great. He's got a lovely wig, and he dies in a weird way. And that's a lot of what you want out of a Donald Pleasence movie.
Yeah, his exit is pursued by a bear, if I recall.
Not so much pursued by as dancing toe-to-toe with one.
Yeah, Leslie Nielsen has a very similar death in Day of the Animals. It's great.
So I'm not going to go into it too much, and I don't want to give any spoilers to any of them, but the two live MST3K shows that they're touring, No Retreat, No Surrender, and Circus of Horrors, they were both really great. It's really charming. It's really like go back to the Cowtown puppet show roots. I'm super glad I got to see them. Everyone should go see them. I'm told that they might be filming them soon, so hopefully they'll get some sort of DVD cinematic Titanic live style release at some point. Certainly Joel's been talking about this as a kind of season 13, so maybe we'll get some evidence of that someday. And that would be really awesome because I think everyone should see these.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. I got very excited when those two movies were mentioned because I've seen Circus of Horrors and No Retreat, No Surrender. I saw on cable a long time ago, but they're both very fun.
Did you get to shake his hand?
Donald Pleasence's?
No. I shook no one's hand. And in fact, I will say, I had asked if any of our listeners were going to be at the shows to get in touch, and someone did tweet me or tweet us while I was at the second show. Yeah. And I didn't notice it until days later. And part of that is because during the second show, I was quickly falling ill, and I waddled home from Brooklyn to my parents' house in Queens with a fever that was just getting worse and worse. And I spent the rest of the weekend in bed.
Oh, no.
So, and you can probably still hear it in my voice. It was no good. So I'm sorry, nice person. I think I actually did see you in the crowd at some point, but I hope you had enjoyed it as well.
Oh, and we have some other big news that we'll talk about at the end of the show. But first, let's talk about this episode.
It's about time. All right, let's go down under. Once upon a time, we watched Season 5, Episode 16, Alien from L.A. Wanda Sack-Newsom is like a total dork to the point where an L tattooed on her forehead could be seen as an improvement, man. This despite the fact that she looks like Kathy Ireland, made all the more attractive by some dorky specs. But this movie uses She's All That logic, where her bifocals are supposed to be boner repellent, so let's run with that, shall we? After her dink boyfriend breaks up with her at the beach because she's afraid of traveling by plane and new experiences and the bird and the egg and the egg in the nest and the nest on the branch and the branch on the limb and the limb on the tree and the tree in the hole and the hole in the ground, etc., etc. So she's dumped. But faster than this olive oil sounding youngster can mend her heart, she learns her father is missing and presumed dead in Africa. Determined, Wanda heads to Africa, and remember that hole in the ground song I referenced earlier? She falls through one and ends up in a place that looks like Bartertown without Tina Turner to lend a much-needed woman's touch. Turns out this is the home of the Atlanteans, who, Wanda's father believed, were ancient astronauts and that landed on Earth centuries ago. Before reuniting with her totally alive father, Wanda makes friends with actors, with dancing accents, and even a semi-love interest in the form of Charmin, the man named after the toilet tissue cartoon bears wipe their asses with. Charmin isn't soft like toilet paper at all, and fights to keep Wanda safe before disappearing and promising to return to her one day. Anyway, Wanda and her pa return to the surface, and both humans and Atlanteans agree to keep their respective civilizations a secret. Back on Earth's surface, the total dink boyfriend returns like a framing device, but she totally rebuffs him. Instead, Charmin, the tough toilet paper guy, rides up on a bike, and he, Wanda, Mike, the bots, and your It's Just a Show team live happily ever after.
And now the episode. In the prologue, Crow is a drill sergeant, and he makes Mike field strip Tom Servo. Crow insults Mike and Tom, including such lines as toilet guzzling little mama's boys, mayonnaise, and finally, you piece of filth, to which Tom responds, well, several pieces actually. In the invention exchange, Dr. F is selling black market organs through a vending machine. Frank attempts to buy a liver since Dr. F has removed his, but the liver gets stuck on the glass. Meanwhile, Mike presents fridge udders, to which the bots respond, teats!
Teats! Teats! Teats! Wow, we can say that.
Teats, 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 teats. In segment 2, the bots are trying to think of a famous model they once saw in a catalog. Mike tries to help out, but doesn't end up guessing the answer. Clara Peller, the Where's the Beef lady. Segment 3 presents the extremely catchy ditty, My Wild Irish Ireland, an ode to Kathy Ireland, which ends up with Mike declaring that he'll make all her enemies pay for their sins. In segment 4, Crow and Tom present the Kathy Ireland fabulous range of emotions acting guessing game. The joke is that her acting range extends from dull surprise to dull surprise. By the way, this is apparently a meme now. In segment 5, a letter with lots of questions makes Mike and the bots feel threatened. Meanwhile, Frank, who's starting to really need a liver, is almost done putting $250,000 in quarters in the Vendigut. But then Dr. F asks him the number for 411, making him lose count and forcing him to start over.
Ah, what a delight. I have to say, this is quite a good episode, and it's very, very fun to watch. It's got everything that I think you could want. It's got fun sketches, it's got a very goofy but likable movie, and the riffs are great.
I half agree. It's funny because I was listening to the last episode, which I had to not be present for, and Chris mentioned that this is one of my favorites. And it's not. Parts of it, particular moments got into my best moments cassette.
I see. Okay.
But even back in the day when I watched it on Comedy Central, I don't think it landed with me quite as much as it does with other people. That said, I think the sketches in this are probably some of the best that they ever did. It's not just because like the Wild Irish Ireland has some of the best lines I think they've ever come up with, including some of the dirtiest. Want to come over and roll in your clover and kiss your Blarney Stone?
I know, they're really riding that PG-13 rating in that episode, yeah.
But Crow and Tom are just so enthusiastic. There's so much energy in this, and I just like the dynamic that they have in these early Mike episodes, where Mike is still adjusting, but he's not the fall guy. Like, he's not the idiot,
Yeah.
but he's not quite daddy either, like Joel was.
Mhm.
There's just a nice dynamic here that I really enjoyed in those first episodes with him.
Yeah, he's the weird uncle.
Yes, exactly. He looks good in it too, but
Sorry.
yeah.
Kathy Ireland for the men, and of course Mike Nelson for the ladies. And vice versa, should your sexuality apply otherwise.
Yeah, but I know Chris said that this is one of the ones that he would use to kind of coax people into the world of MST3K. I can see where you're going from there, because it's like the jokes are straightforward. She's got a squeaky voice. This is really goofy.
There's that sick Donald Pleasence riff.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, Donald Pleasence fun fact number 48. We have got a delightful thing to report in terms of Donald Pleasence facts, because now I found out, one, I am delighted by the fact that Donald Pleasence, when he says the word clerk, he says Clark because he's super old-fashioned, and it's like he's talking to me. But prior to becoming an actor, he was desperate to break into the industry, but he could not actually get into an acting school, which is crazy because he's the most prolific actor who ever lived. But to make ends meet in that time, he worked at a train station in Swinton, whose chief export, maggots.
For what?
Fishing.
Oh.
Yes, but it's just a delight, when you listen to an interview with Donald Pleasence. It's like, before acting, I was into maggots.
That's what I've seen between here and Richmond. A filling station in flames.
Please, God.
Mother Teresa, please hold. Kathy's on line 1.
So Kathy Ireland.
Yeah, so we do know for a fact, because I had completely forgotten, we do know for a fact that this is not her real voice.
Mm-hmm.
She's putting on a voice. And I say that because Kathy Ireland appeared in an episode of Duckman where she kind of did the same voice. So maybe Wanda Sagnewsom is like her fun character she takes out at parties.
Right. I actually recently watched a clip on YouTube, one of her more recent ones, where I think she's on Fox talking about the economy.
Okay, because of course. What?
Well, she was one of the first female celebrities who got into a different industry and made her fortune that way. So when she was getting a little bit too old for modeling, she started to do housewares.
Oh.
Kind of like Martha Stewart. Yeah, I don't think there's a much of a Canadian presence for her stuff, but she is a multimillionaire as a result, is highly successful. So, yes. So good on Kathy Ireland, but what I could get, she basically comes on Fox and says, the economy is good. We're very grateful.
Do we know where she stands politically? I guess just appearing on Fox is enough, but wow.
Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe they just asked.
Yes, maybe Rupert Murdoch charmed her by saying, it's like, I am a big fan of Alien from LA. And she's like, that movie does not get enough respect. Thank you.
Do you want to know where she stands politically?
Sure.
I'm afraid.
So she is, according to Wikipedia, which knows all, she is a committed Christian and she is pro-life, but she also gives some money to various charities, including a lot of HIV stuff. She was good friends with Elizabeth Taylor before Taylor died and did that kind of stuff together. She's also very good friends with Warren Buffett because she's made a lot of money through her entrepreneurial work. She's worth about $500 million.
Yeah.
So
wow.
She and Buffett and Bill Gates open up their Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting things. So, yeah, she's a big deal.
And it's Kathy Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
What? That's crazy.
It's so funny because I have the Amazing Colossal episode guide here. We've talked about Trace Beaulieu's MST3K monsters.
Oh no, is she the one?
She's the one. And it says, note, it is not my intention to cast ill will toward the profession of supermodeling, nor do I wish to give the impression that all models are bubble-headed idiots with aspiration towards bad acting.
Oh.
I am but a humble critic with an opinion. The movie speaks for itself because her weakness is acting. But yeah, there's a lot of jokes throughout about models being dummies and Kathy Ireland specifically being a dummy in this movie. And fair enough, because she's playing a dummy.
Yeah.
But I do remember this being quite prevalent in the 90s, and Turns out, especially if you made it to supermodeldom, you have to be quite shrewd.
Yes, although this fails to explain why every time a supermodel was a guest on a late night show, it would just drag to a f***ing crawl.
Yeah, it's true. Well, not paid to be charismatic.
No, or funny.
So they make a lot of jokes about her voice until I realized it wasn't her real voice. I was a little bit miffed because, at various points they just tell her to shut up outright.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been doing a lot of reading about women's voices and how they have been since Roman times and Greek and Roman times, like excised from the public forums.
Mm-hmm.
And just this idea of women being shrill and hard to listen to is just one of the ways that you silence women. And it made me think about this episode of This American Life, where basically Ira Glass talks about how he gets so many complaints about his female reporters' voices, particularly the
vocal fry.
The vocal fry.
Well, didn't we talk about that with the Warrior of the Lost World? Which was, oddly enough, our very first Donald Pleasence Day special.
Yeah, which is ironic because vocal fry is a way for women to artificially lower their voices.
Become all masculine.
Yeah, so that they sound a little bit more authoritative. In fact, there's been a recent study to prove that in the last generation, women's voices have lowered significantly as they've entered into more authoritative positions in the work world.
Wow.
So that they have a more authoritative tone. But of course, then people complain about it. So women can't have it either way.
Well, it's kind of funny, like, because wow, imagine like how much lower people's voices would get. Because even Angela Pleasence doesn't sound like Donald Pleasence, but and that would be his firstborn daughter. But now it's kind of interesting because, like, here we have an unusual thing, and you're right. This would have aged very poorly if this was Kathy Ireland's real voice, but she's deliberately like pitching herself up and to be as like high and kind of fluty as possible,
and not just high, but annoying. Like she's deliberately putting on a whine, like my dad.
Yeah, like not even Mr. Bill was this high.
So fair enough. Go at it, guys. You can make fun of her voice all you want because it is a put on.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of thing where they're commenting on something that the movie is deliberately doing to try and be funny, but they, like me, and I presume everyone else who's seen it, are just baffled by the choice. It's like, this is your main character? This is what you wanted to? But the interesting thing about the movie is that, remember how there's all those references, and they pick up on it, and they throw a reference to this in the song, the My Wild Irish Ireland, is that there's so many references to her being big-boned.
Yeah, wasn't that weird?
And that's so odd because it's like Kathy Ireland, literal supermodel.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at some of her old photos. It's just like, because I know that Sports Illustrated, which is where she got really famous in the swimsuit edition, was known for, but this was more in the 70s, for presenting, how they say, bigger models, like ones with a bit more meat on their bones. And she is perhaps a little bit more mesomorphic than your, like, heroin chic models that would come a few years later, but not big boned.
Big bone shouldn't apply to anyone who isn't Twiggy.
I wonder if it's a reference to Journey to the Center of the Earth somehow, which this movie is a ripoff of.
Admittedly, I mean, I don't know. My own theory is this, Beth, is that in the script stages, Wanda Sack-Newsom was supposed to have a high-pitched voice, big dorky glasses, and she should be fat. And that her experience would transform her so that she would speak a little more authoritatively. And in fact, the high-pitched voice comes from uncertainty rather than how she sounds. And she would lose weight by being athletic for the first time, because the movie, at the very beginning, they talk about how she doesn't like to move around or travel very much. Or even do outgoing things. And of course she breaks her glasses and finds she doesn't need them. So I think that's what was intended, but
they just didn't have the budget for a fat suit.
Yes, they could not shallow Hal this bitch.
That kind of makes sense, but it's so weird to have Gus just walk around saying, I'm looking for a woman with big bones.
It's super weird. I would even understand if she was like really tall, but she's not. Like, there's nothing big about Kathy Ireland aside from her big, wonderful glasses.
Your movie this week is from the team Golan Globus, some producers I've wanted to inflict on you for some time.
But now, Beth, we must go. In fact, we must go twice. For this is a go-go movie.
We've had Golan Globus before, have we not?
Well, I believe Canon, they were the distributors for Outlaw of Gore.
Mm-hmm.
But they definitely had a big, big hand in this one and in some related media we'll talk about later. But yes, this is Canon Films. And I'm shocked. I was just talking about this with Chris just before we started recording. I am shocked that there have not been more Canon films done on MST3K.
You think they're just holding it back, maybe?
I don't know. Maybe it was too fresh. Maybe it was too expensive because like they could attract stars from time to time, even if those stars were the caliber of Charles Bronson. So maybe it was a bit too prohibitive. But let's get into it. How much do you know about what they called the Go-Go Boys? Menahem, Golan, and Yoram Globus.
Nothing.
Oh, man. Well, you're in for a treat because it's story time. Now, Menahem got his start. I mean, he was an Israeli filmmaker, and he got rich off of Israel's first sex comedy called Lemon Popsicle.
Whoa, I love that name.
Yeah, isn't that terrific? I mean, it suggests something really filthy. So I hope it's a little bit better in its native tongue. but he gets rich off of that. He's desperate to get into the American market. And so he and his partner, Yoram Globus, Menahem was the arts, Yoram was the money man, and they bought a pre-existing distribution company called Canon Films. So unlike what many people believe, Canon did exist before the Go-Go Boys. And prior to that, they were a decent, but not exactly huge distribution company. They distributed a great British horror film called Blood on Satan's Claw, for instance. But Canon transformed all too much by the time the Go-Go's get their hands on it, because one of the first things they do is we're going to make a big American success with the greatest big American star, Charles Bronson. You know that movie Death Wish? It's begging for a sequel. Death Wish 2! And so that's one of the first big motion pictures they make. A very belated, I think it was 7 or 8 years after the original, a belated sequel to Death Wish, where the same thing happens to Charles Bronson and he goes on a rampage again. This time he shoots Jeff Goldblum. Oh no, I'm sorry. Jeff Goldblum's the original. He shoots Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh boy.
They did 3 of the 4 Death Wish sequels.
I was going to say, I gotta imagine there was more than one sequel.
Oh, absolutely. It was a winning formula. And in fact, it seems fitting, even though the Go-Go's have no terrible secrets. They were just deranged and bad with money. It does seem fitting that the Death Wish series ended up with Miramax with Bob and Harvey Weinstein.
Oh boy.
To make the final one. Oh my lord. But anyway, they made several Death Wish sequels, including my favorite fascist comedy, Death Wish 3.
So that's the best of the bunch if I should ever decide to check them out.
If you love being entertained, Death Wish 3 is it. There's a sequence in which characters mourn the death of a criminal that they've named the Giggler by screaming, "They shot the Giggler, man! They shot the Giggler!" You have Charles Bronson, even though he's supposed to be playing a man who's just been pushed too far and is standing up for the little guy, he is behaving like Boris Karloff's mummy throughout the entire film. He is so asleep, and it's hilarious. He sets up all these Home Alone traps for home invaders, and one of the guys gets whacked in the head with a wooden board, and there's something in the board once you hear it, ah! And so everyone in the building that Bronson and his elderly pals are in go to investigate, including Martin Balsam from Mitchell. And they go to investigate the board, and they find something wedged in the board. And I think it's Balsam, in fact, who asks them, it's like, "What the hell is this?" And Charles Bronson, not even a muscle moving, yet still managing to talk, goes, "It's teeth." And it's hilarious, Beth. It's hysterical. The Go-Go Boys, Menahem was a great artist because he directed what is, in my opinion, one of the greatest bad movies of all time, one of the most entertaining movies you could ever hope to watch. So please, everyone who can hear my voice, 1, beware the fog, and 2, watch The Apple.
I think I've seen that one.
Yes, in the far-flung future of 1997, this ringing a bell, there's a record company that owns the whole world called Boogaloo Industrial Magic and Lights. I don't know, I forget, but it's BIM. BIM owns the world, and there's a glam rock duo from Moose Jaw who hit it big but are seduced by the devilish Mr. Boogaloo, who is literally the devil.
Right. Is there a lot of skating in this?
Not that I recall, but there is a
I'm thinking
great
of something else.
Yeah, there's a great a song, the title song, in which the female singer is tempted by a literal apple, and a guy named Alan Love screams, "Take a bite!" Oh God, what a great movie! There are centaurs in it. It's a movie that is fueled entirely by unearned ambition and cocaine, and it's great. And the songs, I will say this, and anyone who's seen the movie and or owns the soundtrack can testify. Some of the songs are actually really good disco numbers. I'm sorry, they're great. For one, there is a terrific song called "BIM is on the Way." That I absolutely love. There are some terrible songs, yes. There's a song called "Coming For You" that I wish I could unhear. Yes, that's true. There's a song that when the female singer has been tempted, and in fact signs with the evil Mr. Boogaloo, she sings a song about the joys of taking speed, because the movie is just insane, and no one was around to say no, because the boss was Menahem or Yoram.
This sounds like something Mystery Science Theater 3000 should sink its teeth into.
Absolutely. I mean, I do think that the later series, like the new series, perhaps sinks a little too much of its teeth into the 80s. But man, I'm shocked that the original series did not do more canon films. I will say this: I must bring the story to its tragic but logical end. Now, Beth, they made some good movies and they made some bad movies. And they made some genuinely good movies because Menahem, as crazy as he was, and he was crazy, let's be honest, and that's his medical diagnosis. The psychiatrist looked at him and said, "Oh, he's just crazy." They made some great movies: Barfly, Street Smart with Christopher Reeve, genuinely good movies. And of course, entertaining trash like the Lou Ferrigno Hercules. Mm-hmm. But they decided ultimately that the town wasn't big enough for two Go-Go's, and they split because they had different ideas for a Lambada movie.
Oh my God, that was such a thing in the 90s.
Yep.
The Forbidden Dance, which wasn't really that forbidden.
And that's just it. One of the movies is called The Forbidden Dance, and that one was produced by either Golan or Globus. I honestly forget. But one of them produced The Forbidden Dance, and the other produced Lambada. But one of the films, in order to kind of cash in on the other or potentially sink the other, the tagline is, "The Forbidden Dance is Lambada." I watched it on Much More Music, the Canadian equivalent of VH1 at one point, and it is a goddamn delight. Specifically, The Forbidden Dance. I have not seen Lambada.
Why the hell not?
Yes. And you know what? Honestly, it really gives me hope that maybe both Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo are good movies, because those are also go-go movies.
They are? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're legendary. I've only seen clips from Breakin' 2. It is a classic.
The dancing is genuinely good. I mean, the Go-Go's, I will say this, as much money as they lost and as crazy decisions as they made, I think really people hated them. One, there was a bit of anti-ethnic sentiment. I mean, one of the nicknames, far less flattering than the Go-Go Boys, they were referred to as the Bad News Jews.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so like people were not exactly kind to these Israeli filmmakers. And you know what? Menahem did make an interesting movie. He made a film called Hannah's War, which is based on the diaries of Hannah Senesh, mm-hmm. and A Great Wind Cometh by Yoel Palgi. I might be saying that wrong. But essentially, this is a World War II story about a Hungarian Jewish girl who goes off to fight in World War II, and she gets captured by the Germans, not unlike Donald Pleasence. And who plays her torturer? You guessed it! Donald Pleasence.
He worked with them. And very interesting.
Yeah, even, you know what? If you can afford Charles Bronson, you can afford Donald Pleasence, probably.
Resorting to violence to get back at someone might not be your cup of tea.
Will you look at that fellow over there? I mean, I have never seen anything so disgusting in all my life.
But I'll bet you've thought about it.
He's staring.
And they work together in The Great Escape. Boom. And Telefon. So many facts. Adam here, letting you know that you can celebrate 100 years of Donald Pleasence with a new shirt from It's Just a Show. Drawn by me and colored by Chris, the shirt depicts a scene from Halloween where Pleasence scares some children while hiding behind a shrubbery. So celebrate Donald Pleasence Day every day with our cool shirt by ordering yours at itsjustashow.com/store. There'll be a link in our show notes. Order now. You'll be glad you did. But that brings us to something I find very interesting and tangentially related, because the Go-Go Boys produced another movie that's technically a sequel to this movie.
What's that you say?
Yep. Journey to the Center of the Earth. So they're being open about it. It is intended to be an adaptation of Verne's novel. Yeah, a fellow by the name of Rusty Lemerand was shooting a film called Journey to the Center of the Earth. But, well, it gets complicated. Because as I mentioned with the Go-Go Boys, Beth, neither Menahem nor Yoram, despite one of them being the money man, were good with money at all. So Canon Films really starts to crumble in the 80s. And I will say, I kind of like Alien from LA. Maybe that makes me a freak, but I love how colorful and weird Alien from LA is.
It is that.
Yeah. The performances are all kind of fun. Even Kathy Ireland, I kind of find fun, to be honest. And there's a lot of goofy charm. And and you see Journey to the Center of the Earth, which was directed by another fella, because, of course, Albert Pune directed this movie, who's somewhat infamous in B-movie circles. And my God, the story behind this film. So originally, it was going to be a straight adaptation, just, 80s up a notch. It was going to be a modern day thing to appeal to modern day kids. Okay. And apparently, it was going to involve 3 young people who end up going to the center of the earth, and they run into a charismatic weirdo named Nimrod who guides them around. Nimrod being played by Emo Phillips. But Canon loses all their money, and so filming stops. And they very quickly have to cobble together a movie, and they think, for whatever reason, that the best choice to take all this raw footage that has almost no special effects in it would be to film a kind of story that connects it to Alien from LA, get as many of the actors back as possible. I think they still had the sets, and that's why they cooked up this scheme, because surely Alien from LA was not a huge hit. But they decided to fire the director, get Albert Pune to do it, who reluctantly took the job. He did not want to take over somebody's film, but he needed to work, and that was free work, basically. Well, I mean, he got paid, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was there for the taking.
Yeah, it was an opportunity for him, even though it was someone else's firing. And so he films it as a sequel to Alien from LA. So he brings back like the sleazy character who tries to sell Wanda Sack-Newsom. Remember, I think her name is like Snitch or Snatch or Scratch or something, but she looks like one of the misfits from Jim,
right? But
with like old witch's teeth.
Yeah.
And she essentially finds the new characters in the movie, and she basically guides them back to the surface somehow, and I'll explain that in a bit, because she has reformed. She's decided that she does not like the bottom-dwelling world and really wants to escape.
Huh. Okay.
And that's how the movies connect, even though that seems like a big 180 from her character in this movie, where she's clearly like a rat, horrible, crazy person.
Well, I think she's coded as a junkie.
Yeah. But here she's just like a goofball. So it's funny is that this is the less gritty sequel to Alien from LA.
Oh, it's heartwarming. Yeah. And is Wanda in it?
That is interesting, because if you watch the movie, Beth, like I was confused by 2 things. Emo Phillips is not credited, and I thought it was an Emo Phillips movie. That was one of the reasons I watched this. And Kathy Ireland gets the prestigious "and Kathy Ireland as Wanda Sacknewsome." I posted that on Twitter because it was like, oh my god, it was so funny seeing that as like a big legitimate credit in a major motion picture like this. And Kathy, okay, so let's go into this. They get to this cave. The three characters who are going to serve as our protagonists. While they're there, all of them have dreams. They decide to fall asleep and rest because they get lost in a cave. And they all dream of the rest of the footage out of sequence just so they can use it and pad out the film and like cover their asses in terms of expenses. So you see all these like fun Jim Henson puppets that are never seen again because they're a dream sequence. Emo Phillips shows up, but I guess they needed to pay him more if they wanted to use any of his dialogue. So he's just there, but nobody reacts to him, and he's never been introduced. So he just shows up and disappears.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Adam.
Yeah, I know. And then they at least get to the center of the earth, and I thought, all right, Wanda Sacknewsome is going to save the day. Maybe they're going to pull Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where she's going to show up briefly at the beginning, and then she'll do something important at the end. No. Here's the plot when we get to the center of the earth. All of the underground people are upset, and they're asking a lot of questions about the surface world, and the government wants to quiet that down. So they're creating Wanda Sacknewsome robots.
What?
Well, I guess more accurately, they're clones. But they're creating a bunch of Wanda Sacknewsome clones. They are just actresses wearing Kathy Ireland masks.
Oh, so creepy.
Yeah, it's very, very off-putting, and they're trying to do the voice. And there's posters of Kathy Ireland around. Like, there's all these publicity shots of Kathy Ireland from Alien from L.A. that they could not possibly have access to in terms of the universe. And they're trying to get her to emulate Wanda Sacknewsome's distinct speech. And you think, oh, God, that's it, isn't it? They just paid for her likeness and put her credit in the movie as a trick. No. There's an outtake of Kathy Ireland smiling and looking at the camera, and that plays at the very, very end when the movie literally stops. It fades to white. All of the conflicts get resolved somehow. We have no idea. And suddenly, the junkie character and one of the characters from this movie are watching canon movies on TV, and they have a good laugh about it, and the canon movie is interrupted when Wanda Sacknewsome is announced as being the ambassador from Earth to the surface world to improve trade relations between the two.
Oh, Lord.
And that's this crazy movie.
Worth it?
I will say this. The first 45 minutes, aside from like the Muppety stuff, no. Like the Muppety stuff suggests a really fun movie, but I would not recommend it. However, once they get to the Albert Puniverse, I get super into it. And I kind of enjoyed how crazy and bonkers it was. Like, we're making Kathy Ireland clones. Okay. We need to tell people about the surface, even though the whole plot of the last film was that we couldn't tell people about the surface. Okay. The junkie lady character is now a good guy and she wants to escape. Okay. And everything is colorful and weird. And I will say this, even though the rest of the footage that was shot by a different director bears no resemblance to Alien from LA, all the Pune stuff is seamless. Some of which might even be outtakes. But at least we know the Kathy Ireland thing is, because she definitely did not come back. But yeah, that is that movie. And boy, what a treat it is.
Hey, before we move on, I was just looking up, because Adam, you mentioned the Shank character, and I just wanted to figure out what her name actually was. And then I noticed something which somehow I've never noticed in the seemingly dozens and dozens of times I've watched this episode, and even in doing some of the research getting up to this, which is, did you know that Shank and Eye Patch Evil Lady are the same actor?
What?
Yeah. Also, did you know that the super blonde girlfriend of Gus, the fake Australian guy,
is also Shank?
Is the same actor as Wanda's aunt with the curly hair on the roller skates at the beginning of the movie?
What?
There's a bunch of double actors from people who are underground playing roles overground, which none of which I realize except for the Charmin thing that comes up. But like, yeah.
Yeah, there's the ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend was also giving her a once-over down there.
Yeah, there's a bunch of that, but I never would have guessed. I've never noticed that that's the same actor.
Wow.
In fact, I really feel like I need to watch it again to verify it, but yeah.
That makes me appreciate it all the more because you know what, like Chris, I'm curious because you're an even bigger fan than I am of this episode. What did you think of the performances in this movie? Because I absolutely love them.
So, I'm not as much of a fan of schlock generally like you and other people are.
Aww.
I mean, that's just true. I'm just not. But like the way that you describe how you enjoy a good schlocky movie is exactly the way that I really enjoy this movie, at least in the context of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally like, oh yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. Every choice was the right choice, basically. even the ridiculous voice, that sounds like exactly the right choice.
Yeah.
I just think it's all completely appealing in the best way.
Yeah, it's a strangely lovable movie, certainly as presented in its MST3K format, where they're, admittedly the boys are in top form.
Exactly.
Hey everybody, it's time for the Shallow 13.
It's time for the Shallow 13. 13 bite-sized but big-boned bits about Alien from LA. Go, Beth, go!
Who do you think gets second billing after Ireland? If you guess that guy who only shows up an hour into the film and is on screen for like 5 minutes, then you're right. Tom Matthews plays the irritating Charmin, and his lack of screen time isn't due to Best Brains editing, like how they cut so much of John Saxon from Mitchell. No, Matthews was given high billing as a marketing tactic. He was fresh from cult hits like Return of the Living Dead and Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives.
Though this is Kathy Ireland's first film appearance, she did have one bit part prior to her squeaking debut. Ireland appeared briefly in a 1985 episode of Charles in Charge to hone her acting chops with noted conservative wingnut and walking punchline, Scott Baio.
Ever wonder how Wanda got saddled with such a dorky name? In a word, homage. As we mentioned, Alien from LA is something of an adaptation of Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth, which features a minor character named Anna Seknussemm.
Neither Alien from LA nor the film's semi-sequel are alone in being weird, inept adaptations of Verne's classic. 1978 saw the release of Juan Piquer Simon's When Time Began. Simone, the Spanish Ed Wood, first piqued Misty's interest when his largely forgotten film Pod People was riffed in Season 3.
Crow drops a sick Yentl burn in this episode.
Let's say, Mike, how's your exclusive limited laser disc edition of Yentl?
Funnily enough, Yentl was produced by Rusty Lemerend, the director of Alien from LA's sequel, Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Mike and the bots are understandably amused by Mambino, the guy in white makeup with red eyelashes who looks like he's about to bust into Putting on the Ritz. That makeup renders Deep Roy even more unrecognizable than he was playing Scotty's green alien pal in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek reboot. Roy hails from Nairobi and is still acting today. He's appeared in such favorites as the Doctor Who serial The Talons of Weng Chiang. He played Tin Man in Return to Oz, and even makes an appearance in the original Never-Ending Story as Teeny Weeny.
Tom dubs Wanda's gravelly-voiced Australian companion, Poop Deck Pappy.
Is he Poop Deck Pappy or something?
No, he's not the guy who shovels What's-It at the King of Town's place. Poop Deck Pappy is the estranged father of the comic strip and cartoon icon Popeye the Sailor Man. In Poop Deck's original strip appearance, he bugs Popeye, and it apparently ends with them flirting with mermaids. In the theatrical shorts, Poop Deck's lost on some place called Goon Island, thus becoming estranged from his son. Can't remember if there's any Splash-style romance in that one.
A quick visit to the Scorner. Ba-ba-ba-ba. Let's listen to Tom hum something early in the episode. That little ditty is Jerry Goldsmith's Oscar-nominated theme from Patton. And Tom wasn't the only one with a penchant for referencing Goldsmith's stirring, echoing trumpets, as the composer quoted and parodied his score in such films as The Burbs and Gremlins 2, The New Batch.
The Burbs and Gremlins 2, The New Batch, were directed by noted MST3K detractor Joe Dante, who worked with Goldsmith regularly until the composer's death in 2004. The fondness and knowledge of music espoused by Trace and Frank, combined with the undeniable musical gifts of Mike Nelson and Kevin Murphy, suggests a mutual respect for Goldsmith and cinema, which could easily make these unlikely enemies into the best of friends. The signs are all there, Joe. Alas, why don't they look?
Crow and Tom confused supermodel Kathy Ireland with Clara Peller. Peller was best known as the elderly curmudgeon asking, "Where's the beef?"
Hey, where's the beef?
in a popular 80s ad campaign for Wendy's. Peller's 15 minutes extended not only to t-shirts bearing the catchphrase, but a bit of acting work. Writer-director Larry Cohen cast Peller in The Stuff, an 80s horror comedy about a sentient yogurt from the center of the earth that ends up as a popular snack. So she could bark, "Where's the stuff?" Peller, at the height of her popularity, negotiated a rather large sum for her jokey cameo.
As Wanda gets up from her fall to the center of the earth, she's blasted by steam vents. Mike quips,
"Oh, a plague upon this howling. They are louder than the weather of our office."
This quote from the opening of Shakespeare's play The Tempest is significantly more highbrow than most of the lines they feed Wanda. And it's also a good excuse for us to plug producer Chris's other, more literary podcast, The Spouter Inn, which recently did an episode on The Tempest. Link in the show notes.
Seeing the cartoonish, vaguely post-apocalyptic lost civilization that serves as the film's primary setting, Mike quips,
Home Alone 3, The Destruction of Jarad Zinn.
Metal Storm, The Destruction of Jarad Zinn, is a Star Wars / Mad Max fusion in which the Heavy is played by Bull from Night Court. It was produced by Charles Band of Laser Blast and The Daytime Ended fame, and, by the looks of it, it made great MST3K fodder. We'll have a link in our show notes to the rollicking trailer for Metal Storm.
In a case of life imitating art, there now exists a Home Alone 3. In fact, the series is up to its 5th entry, though none of the sequels past Lost in New York feature Macaulay Culkin, or for that matter, Donald Trump. The 1997 film pits a different child against a brand new group of wet, or possibly dry, bandits. If you can't afford Macaulay Culkin in 1997, you definitely can't afford Joe Pesci. But why didn't Daniel Stern jump at the chance to star?
And that's time.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hi. I've got a challenge segment for you guys.
Ooh.
You might have noticed there were a lot of musicians and bands mentioned in this episode.
This is where all those new wave bands went when the wave was over.
Now, I might have missed a few, but I'm giving you guys a list of about 30 bands or songs or whatnot that I caught. And your challenge is, can you pick one of them from this list and give me something interesting that'll make a nice old segment for the listeners? Who wants to go first? Who's got it?
I think Beth does.
You can pick from things like, there's like Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. There's some Debbie Harry from Blondie. There's some Exene Cervenka from Band X. They do One Night in Bangkok by Murray Head. Which of these do you like, Beth?
The one I had is not about the specific song, but about Tina Turner.
Tina Turner demands a table.
Yes, I want that table over there. Yes, that one, do you see? Yes.
So you're probably familiar with her backstory and how she got away from her very abusive relationship with her husband, Ike Turner, and basically started over and became a big hit in the 80s. And she attributes her conversion to Buddhism for that strength, and specifically chanting the famous mantra, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
I don't know what that means.
Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So you haven't seen the movie. She chants this a lot. It is the central mantra of all forms of Nichiren Buddhism. It's reduced sufferings by eradicating negative karma, along with reducing karmic punishments, both from the previous and present lifetimes. When she was getting away from Ike Turner, she would often chant that over and over again for 3 hours.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yes, but it wasn't just Tina Turner who got onto this famous mantra. It was also featured in the final episode of The Monkees to break Peter out of a trance.
Okay.
It also appears in a number of pop songs, including Welcome Back Home by the Byrds, Let Go and Let God on the Grace and Gratitude album by Olivia Newton-John,
Wow.
and Yoko Ono's Nam Myoho Renge Kyo song.
And to think, she did not feel tempted to call it Nam Myoho Renge Yoko. Huh?
Oh.
Huh?
Yeah.
To think.
Have you ever used that or any other mantra, Beth?
I might start to. I certainly need something to kind of chill me out these days.
Fair enough. Well, Adam, which one would you like to choose?
Well, you know what? There's a lot of good ones here. Devo is mentioned, but I've talked about them on the podcast before. And, just because I'm Canadian doesn't mean I know anything about Rush. And I do love me some Boots Randolph, or even the interesting career of Michael Cimbello. But let's choose specifically a song reference, A Day in the Life by a little group called The Beatles.
I live from where?
Woke up, got out of bed, dragged a comb across my head.
What's that?
What is special about this particular song?
Well, many Beatles songs are special. However, the most special ones are the George Harrison ones. This one isn't one of those. So what makes it special, Beth? Well, it was one of Donald Pleasence's Desert Island discs.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What does he say about it?
He chose it as the best of the Beatles songs. And you know what? Especially if you heard the Beatles as it was happening, as opposed to getting all their catalog at once, potentially in a random order, as most of us do now. That was probably a watershed moment, like hearing that for the first time when A Day in the Life just simply didn't exist.
What album is that from?
Sgt. Pepper's.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And funnily enough, when they made a film version of Sgt. Pepper's starring the Bee Gees as the Beatles, who is one of the many weird stars for the supporting cast? Steve Martin? Yes. Alice Cooper? Yes. Also, Donald Pleasence.
Man.
It's like an Ouroboros.
That's right, a Roborus. Donald Pleasence is the snake that eats himself because they got him to sing, I believe he was supposed to sing I Want You, She's So Heavy. It's been a while since I've seen it on Much More Music. And they told him after he was singing, it's like, you know what, you can just sing talk.
Nice.
Those elocution lessons paid off. Well, Beth, we have finished, I think. We've said everything that we can say about Alien from LA, and all we have to do now is continue to do this show for the rest of our lives.
Unfortunately, I am needed elsewhere.
What?
Yes. So you might have noticed I was absent from the last one due to a baby-related emergency. Well, that baby hasn't gone away. In fact, she's lying on me right now, asleep. And I love this baby. She's very sweet. But she is a terrible sleeper, and for that reason, I am not getting any sleep. And I actually have returned to work part-time, so I have an awful lot on my plate right now, and unfortunately, I know I'm not bringing my A game to this podcast anymore because I'm so damn tired.
Oh no, then what are we going to do? Are we just going to fold up shop, or are we just going to take down the tent and just stop the program after this auspicious 2 years, almost 3 years now of doing the show? What's going to happen?
It's hard to say. Hopefully I'll be able to return once this baby is not actively trying to kill me. But in the meantime, we have a perfectly good backup host in the form of Chris, our producer.
My God, that could work.
What? Did somebody call? I wasn't listening.
Chris, would you like to fill the empty co-host slot for It's Just a Show for a little while?
I'd be happy to. I'd be honored to. I will be sad to not have you around contributing what you contribute and, having your high-pitched women's voice being heard on the podcast, so to speak. But no, yeah, I can do this. I will make sure to keep the microphone warm, but not too warm, in case you ever want to come back and use it again someday.
I'll miss you guys too.
Yeah.
That was like the best part was hanging out with you guys and talking about a fun show.
Yeah. Turns out the real Justice shows were the friends we made along the way. I already regret that joke.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Moldy.
So I had gotten the idea that this was one of your favorite episodes from something we talked about a long time ago. What show is your favorite that we haven't done yet? I mean, I know Zombie Nightmare is another one of your favorites, but we did do that one. Is there anything else that we haven't gotten to yet that you wish you could, or that you want us to make sure to invite you back for someday?
Yeah, what's the one?
I want to do the Night of the Blood Beast with Once Upon a Honeymoon.
Oh, yes.
That's the short.
Yes.
Very much. That's one of my favorites.
And the baby loves it too.
What's your favorite, baby? Huh?
No, the baby loves Robot versus the Aztec Mummy. What a stupid baby! I'm sure the baby's fine. I'm joshing.
No,
it's a
okay.
lovely baby.
She's pretty stupid right now.
Well, I mean, you're leaving, which saddens me, Beth. But at least you're leaving for an honorable reason. I mean, my God, the only reason I would have to stop doing this podcast is if I've become so socially maladroit at that point that I'd have to be trucked out into the street and shot.
So, Beth, before you head off into the wilderness, do you have any tips for me as I take over your enormous shoes?
Don't have a baby.
Done.
Okay. Say, Beth, do you know any of the words to The Circus of Dr. Lau?
It's Dr. Lou.
I thought Dr. Lou was the porn parody of Doctor Who.
I would say, Chris, a good host, if you're looking for a drink that will caffeinate you but not make you too burpy and it's not going to be hot if you spill, go for your kombucha. I'll have a SCOBY for you in a couple weeks.
Wow.
That is very burpy. It's the burpiest of drinks.
You found me out. I was trying to sabotage you.
Oh, no. Wow, I didn't realize you were the Dr. Smith of this podcast, Beth.
I have to burn everything down before I leave.
Well, if any of our listeners want to write in and say some nice things to Beth, this might be a good time to do it, and you know where to reach us.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, guys, what are you going to be doing next?
Actually, before we get to that, you, Beth, have never had a chance to read the If You've Been Affected By bit. Do you want to have a go?
Sure.
I did. It was fun.
If you've been affected by the issues on this show... Oh, no.
She has.
It was nice while it lasted, but the show's canceled.
What a way to leave. Huh? With the crying baby farting. There we go. All right. If you've been affected by the issues on this show, if you need any more Donald Pleasence fun facts, or if you'd like to ask us anything, get in touch with us. Our website is itsjustashow.com, and we're on Twitter at itisjustashow. We'd love to hear from you. This show is made possible by listeners like you. For as little as $1 an episode, you can help us research and record this show. Please keep supporting the show, even after I'm gone. Find out more at itsjustashow.com/Patreon or patreon.com/itsjustashow. And if you want to follow up on anything that was mentioned today, you'll find links in our show notes at itsjustashow.com/episode/57.
I guess, Beth, since you're leaving us, and which I must confirm with a heavy heart is true, then Chris, as the Mike Nelson in this scenario, and I guess also the Dr. F, since you'll be telling me what we're watching next, what will we be talking about and watching for the next It's Just a Show?
Well, the next It's Just a Show is going to be very, 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 very scary because Beth won't be there and it'll be around Halloween. So we're going to be watching Season 1, Episode 6, The Crawling Hand.
Oh, God. What?
Oh, God.
Seriously?
I've never been happier to leave the show.
Of all the...
This was the episode that they had on one of the turkey days, and it made me swear off Season 1 for, well, until we started doing the show.
Yeah, with good reason. It's a terrible episode, at least from memory. I'll give it a shot. I'll be fair. But yeah, despite what some of you say online, I'll be fair. But I guess we are, oh God, you're sure, first Lords of the Deep, now this. Beth, yeah. You've really shown your true personality in these final few recordings, I must say.
That's right. I'm a fair weather mister.
Well, I will say before we go, I just want to give one thing. So this is the Donald Pleasence Centennial. He would have lived to be 100. He's very, very special to me, and I have already mentioned what movies I think time and again that I think are worth watching of his, amongst many of them. But what did the man himself think? You know? Because we have to think, Donald Pleasence was one of those people who made movies special. He was a strange and interesting character actor with a unique presence. So, here's a few movies to check out, which Beth will be checking out on her sabbatical, that I think all listeners should give a watch, that he recommends himself. Wake in Fright by Ted Kotcheff, the adaptation of Pinter's The Caretaker. Cul-de-sac by Roman Polanski. You can skip that one if you want. The Great Escape, Will Penny, and Soldier Blue, in which he co-stars with a young Candice Bergen, with songs by Buffy Sainte-Marie. So I have heard Buffy Sainte-Marie music before.
Oh, there you go.
We will all be enriched by watching these movies.
Yeah, man. You need more Donald Pleasence movies in your life. I've been saying this for 3 years now.
All right. Well, that'll give everybody something to do if they don't want to watch the next episode.
And you don't.
Oh, boy. Beth, your reprieve. But until next time...
I'll see you guys later.
Oh, that was a very good Wanda.
Thank you.
It was a terrible Tina Turner, but it was a great Wanda.
And reports of surface dwellers have been greatly exaggerated.
Take it away, Theme Squad.
Goodbye, Beth.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Beth. Goodbye, Beth. Goodbye, Beth.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
I loved her as my life. I gladly give my heart and hand.